all across America and around the world. This is Veterans Radio. And now, your host for today's program.
Welcome to Veterans Radio. I'm Shelly Rood, and I'm glad you're choosing to spend some time with me today. Before we get into today's program, I want to thank some of our major donors for their continuing support of Veterans Radio. Legal Help for Veterans, specializing in veterans' disability claims. Call them at 1-800-693-4800 or visit legalhelpforveterans.com. Also, my friends at the National Veterans Business Development Council, better known as the NVBDC, the nation's leading third-party authority for certification of veteran-owned businesses. Visit nvbdc.org or call 888-237-8433. And the Charles S. Kettles Vietnam Veterans of America, Chapter 310 of Ann Arbor, Michigan. And if you would like to support Veterans Radio, visit veteransradio.org and click the donate button. We thank you in advance. Now, a little about me, for those who are tuning in for the first time with me as a co-host on this show. I'm a former U.S. Army Reserve captain of military intelligence and a distinguished military graduate from Western Michigan University. Before I got into business coaching and podcasting, I spent years in broadcast television, working alongside people who went on to win Emmy Awards. So I know what it feels like to sit across from a story that really, genuinely deserves to be told and to have to fight for the airtime to tell it. I carry that same standard into every microphone I step up to, and I am truly honored to bring it to you here on Veterans Radio. I've known both Jim and Dale, the other hosts of Veterans Radio, for years, and what they asked me to bring to the show was so much more than just the opportunity to host the show. And I want to give you a taste of what's coming, because the lineup that I have been building for you, it'll make any veteran sit up straight. Former Marine Force Recon Scout Sniper A.J. Pasciuti is on deck. I'm also interviewing retired U.S. Navy SEAL Andy Stump. And if you don't know Andy, Joe Rogan has said on record that if the world went sideways and we had to put together a militia to save the human race from a zombie outbreak, Andy Stump is the first draft pick. I think that tells you everything you need to know about the caliber of the people coming to this microphone. These are the kinds of conversations we're going to have here. More stories, more of the veteran experience that deserves the microphone. Veterans Radio has been on the air for over 20 years, and the one thing that Jim and Dale wanted was to expand the range of who you hear from. That means younger veterans who came home to a very different America than the generations before us. And it means veterans from corners of service that rarely get the spotlight. And yes, sometimes it means women veterans like myself. Every episode that I bring you will stand on its own. The veteran experience cuts across every background, every era, every branch, and that's exactly the terrain I intend to cover. Today just happens to be one of those stories where a woman served, she came home, looked around, and decided that what was missing was her problem to solve. So let's get into it. Every woman who has served in the military knows what it feels like to walk into a room and scan for the other ones. We look for the posture, the eye contact, the way she holds a conversation like she's already running a debrief in her head. You look because you're used to looking, and then sometimes you don't find her, and then you feel like you're the only one. Melissa Washington heard that over and over again when she started gathering women veterans in Sacramento, California. This was 11 years ago. Women would walk through the door and say, "I thought I was the only woman veteran in this community." 11 years later, Women Veterans Alliance has grown into a national presence with thousands of women in its reach, a giving foundation, a small business award, a national broadcast event and a partnership with Thrive Cosmetics that has put hundreds of thousands of dollars in product into the hands of military women. Melissa Washington is a Navy veteran, a CEO, a connector, and someone who has never waited for someone else to build what she could see was missing. Her story is the kind that proves the gap is real and that one woman with a mission and no business plan can spend 11 years filling it. This is her story.
Where I am at today was not my intent when I started Women Veterans Alliance. So we can go back 11 years when I started a small meetup in Sacramento, California for women veterans that met the third Thursday of every month. And my intent was, hey, I'm going to get a location for us each month. I'll find a speaker and we'll just continue to grow locally. But we continue to grow and grow because there is such a need for women to want to gather and connect with each other. And and I've heard this more than one time where women would come in and they would really feel like, I thought I was the only woman veteran here in a community. So if they feel that way, then how many other women that have served feel that way? You know, building something where I know that there was that need, and then just a lot of it was just creating based upon that need. It's like seeing, okay, what's not there, and then what can I create to be there? And I had no business plan. It's like, okay, everybody said when you start a business, you've got to have a plan and you got to have your trajectory. Nope, I was in the deep end. Didn't even test the water, the depth. I was in there. And sometimes I feel so like I'm in there swimming, right? We talk about, things we're passionate about and our purpose. Granted, there's things that I'm passionate about, but this has been my purpose. I mean, everything that I've done, prior to that has all been these stepping stones for me to blossom, to have this, and I feel like with everyone, right, we have these seeds that are there, right? And it's like they may not come out till we're 40, 50, and then really embracing that. And that's what I've done the last 11 years and continue to evolve and create other things. And just so many things have happened with that. And again, going back, that was not my intent for it to
And
be global of what it is today.
going back to that moment, what is it that gave you the idea to even want to connect with other women veterans?
I'm very much a connector. I've started other groups before, but I was really looking for an opportunity to connect with other women veterans in more of a professional setting, not as the traditional veteran groups have their meetings and the formality and all of that stuff. I just wanted to do what I like to do. I like to gather and break bread and connect with other women because I noticed that there was something that was missing in our space. So instead of waiting for others to create it, I just created it on my own.
And your creation kept going because not only do you have a group, I mean, Melissa has a business, she has a foundation, she has multiple different events happening. Can you share with us some of those rabbit holes that you've gone down for good and bad? I mean, they all can't have possibly made it big, have they?
No, they haven't. I mean, there's been some flukes along the way, right? It's a learning process. And one of the things too, being an entrepreneur, we're always thinking of other things that we can do. And the best analogy I say is like, I'm flying the plane and I'm building it as I'm flying, right? So I'm trying to find the right people to help me with the building of it. But then I've got all these great ideas of things that I do. And everything I do comes from the heart, serve with the servant's heart. And we do that, but we also know that there also has to be a financial aspect, right? Because I'm not a wealthy person financially, but how can, we continue to do this, but also bring in money to continue to do that? So, different things have evolved with the alliance, right? It's starting a business, and that's always like to share with people. So whether you're starting a nonprofit or, a book club or a group, a lot of it's the basic fundamentals of starting a business, right? It's again minus the business plan because I get an F for that because I didn't have the plan. I But, just having whether the basic things of having a website, a domain, having, a separate checking account. I mean, all these things, right, of starting this and then evolving into my other entities. And everything I do are things that I love to do. There's probably really nothing that I've done. I wouldn't do it if I didn't want to do it, right? Or I gotta have some kind of interest. And along the way, it may look perfect to everybody, like, oh, she created this and it's great, but no, but there's been a lot of other things along the way. So with that, so Women Veterans Alliance, and then during that time when I started the group, I was debating, okay, what is this? The tax status. And that's everybody, is it a for-profit? Is it a nonprofit? Do we have fiscal agent? I mean, there's all these things I was going through in the first year. And then, okay, then all right, decide on that. But the next entity that I started was Women Veterans Giving. And that's the nonprofit arm of the Alliance. Why did I start that? One, to give women veterans opportunity to serve on a board or a committee. And also, two, to be able to help what I can fill the gap when it comes to funding for our women entrepreneurs. As we know, with any business, the top thing is money. So how can I help raise funds? How can I get others to help so we can help infuse cash into these businesses of women? So that started, and we created a small business award that was given yearly. And the small business award is named after me. I always have to make sure I preface it because I'm not like ego, like, oh, I needed this to be named after me. The committee named it. That was not mine. And the reason they said it's named after you because they said if you weren't here, this wouldn't happen. So it's very much, an honor to have the award named after me. And also, too, I think having it named after me, I work a lot harder to making sure that we get those funds to be able to infuse that cash. It's all volunteer. We've got a very small board. We're very grassroots. We don't have large financial partners. We don't get big grants. We're doing a lot on a shoestring budget. But with that shoestring budget that we have, the impact is huge. And it's like, look what we can do with this, but just think if we had so much more of how much more impact that we can have and the transformational change that has happened in these women in their business. And with that, May 1st, the application's open for our 2026 Small Business Award. And the criteria is you've either had to serve or currently serving, and you need to be the founder of the business. And your tax entity could be a for-profit or nonprofit. As long as you are the one that started it and put the sweat in and still probably sweating and all that stuff, that's the qualification.
How'd you know I'm
Because it
still
doesn't go
sweaty?
away. And the question comes, well, I run a nonprofit, but I didn't start it. You don't qualify. Or I have a franchise or a business. That's, that's different. We want women that have put that in, and you could be in any phase of your business. So if you're like, okay, I'm just starting it, or I've been in business for a few years, and if extra cash can help me do this, those are the women we want. So May 1st, if you are that person or someone, let them know. We'll give up to $5,000 in cash. Plus there's other coaching and workshops and assessments that we provide. The 3 finalists will come to the Veterans in Business Conference. That'll be the first week of November in Palm Springs. So the women, they get to experience that conference, connect with each other. And let me tell you, the struggle is real to really to get those funds to be able to do that. Granted, we do have small expenses, but we want to be able to do that. And another cool thing that came from the nonprofit piece is Thrive Cosmetics. Absolutely. We have the Thrive Cosmetics for Heroes program, and we've given thousands of bags of cosmetics. So we have a group of volunteers that they go and they just assemble all the different products and and put them in a bag to do that. And next year we're going to be expanding that program as well, because it goes in line with what we're doing, helping women professional personal development. The unconference, I started it in California, in Sacramento, and I have a very strong background with events. I worked at LinkedIn and did global corporate media planning for LinkedIn. So I had a lot of experience with doing events, and California used to put on a Women Veterans State Conference, and they haven't since 2014. So yeah, so we did that in a conference, and one year we did it in Northern California, Southern California. And it's the same thing too of if you even look at the logo, I think it's like Northern California Women Veterans Conference, so it was just, but women were coming from everywhere. They weren't just coming from one area. It was being pulled back. But was such a successful event for the women of everything that we did. And I truly loved putting the unconference on.
Melissa, I want to pause on that word funding real quick because you are brave enough and smart enough to have conversations around funding.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a lot of women in this space or supporters of this space who are scared to have that conversation. And that's something that I've always really appreciated about you.
When I do talk about the whole financial thing, and like you said, some may not be wanting to talk about it because they may be embarrassed or feel like you're a failure or it's nobody's business. But again, if we don't have the money, yeah, we can do, and it'll come. But money's not a bad word or a dirty word, right? We all need it. And then sometimes it's not there. And how do we get that? Or what sacrifices do we make? And I've made many sacrifices, which I've shared before, from refinancing my house to several other things to be able to do what I do. And some people think, well, maybe that's not smart, or, well, maybe you should just go find, a 9-to-5 job and work in an office. That's not for me. That's part of why I started Women Veterans Giving, is to be able to, if we can infuse a little bit of money, because I'm telling you, there are so many times where I wish, if I just had $500 and I could print out these flyers, or, it's just that little thing. Or I remember one year when we gave the women veterans, it might have been the first or second year, I remember we were struggling financially, personally. But then here I'm giving this award, right? So there was, I felt a certain way, but I'm just like, we just have to continue to do that. And with that too, I also have my own consulting business, which also helps as far as my speaking. I've got 2 books, working on the third book, and with the speaking and the consulting. So, that helps bring in some other things. But I'm not a 9-to-5er. That's really hard for me to ever even have been one. I love that flexibility. And, but not having that, then I don't have the stability of getting a paycheck every 2 weeks. So a lot of times I have to make sacrifices. Um, but ensuring that my family is not affected, because granted, my family is important, number one, by all means, but also to making sure the things that I do in the business, but we should feel comfortable. We should be okay with having these conversations, because if we do, then we can all help each other.
And they're necessary, not just for sustainability, but also for growth. We're talking about the rising of the tides, where we are able to raise the levels of success for ourselves. We bring others along with us. And you are a champion when it comes to lifting up other military women and their businesses. And you are very humble. I am going to brag on you for just a minute here, because I don't think that our audience really has grasped the scope of Melissa Washington. I mean, we're talking about a CEO, a radio show host. You are a Navy veteran. Can you share with us a little bit about your military background?
Absolutely. I joined the United States Navy. I was 18. I graduated high school at 17, went to community college for a year. I was getting my certification in early child education because I was going to be a preschool teacher. So I did that and then joined the Navy at 18. In the Navy, you go to A school, and that's where I met a Marine who would eventually become my husband. After A school, then I went to Little Creek, Virginia, on board a rescue salvage ship. And at this time, so this is the early 90s, and women were only allowed on certain types of ships. So we weren't allowed, when I was in, we were not allowed on aircraft carriers, destroyers, submarines. But there were ships we were allowed on, and one of those was a rescue salvage ship, primarily divers on that ship. And our focus was to salvage things, of course, that went into the water. So I was there, and I was thankful I went on board a small ship, because being on a small ship, I got to do a lot more. I was in logistic, being in supply, really understanding the parts and just everything else that needed to be ordered. And during that time, I was fortunate enough to go on a 6-month deployment to the Mediterranean. So at that time, I was 19. So not too bad being 19 and going to France and Spain and Italy and Bulgaria and wherever else we went. So that was awesome. I don't like the cold. I wanted to come back to California. And also the Marine that I met was stationed in California. And so we have to remember at this time, there was no Google. The internet wasn't like it is robust today. I was told, well, if you want to go to San Diego, you need to find another woman that is equal rank and equal time. Between me and my chief, I was able to find another E4, and she had family, she wanted to come out. Fantastic. Then I got to go to be stationed in San Diego at 32nd Street on board Destroyer Tender, which are those no longer are there. And
I want to pause on that for a second
yep,
because you didn't just have to go find your MOS or like your job designation with an opening. You had to have a woman who was currently filling that opening.
yep, because that was the billet. So the billet was for a female with that had to be E4, and trying to find the same amount of time. It wasn't easy, but you know what? When you're determined to find someone, it's calling around, and it's not like you could put an ad on, Facebook and say, "Hey, I'm looking." That's not how that worked back then. Um, so that was a great opportunity. Then when I got there, not long after I got there, we did a Westpac. So that's a 6-month deployment, and that was the end of '93. So during that time, we were heavily involved in Somalia. And so I always remember every Christmas, spending 1993 Christmas off the coast of Somalia. And bigger ship, so of course, it's what I got to do was a smaller scope than having to do everything because there was a lot more of us on board. And then 94 comes around, we finished the deployment. And at that time, President Clinton was downsizing the military. And they say, hey, if people were interested in volunteering to get out. And so I said, you know what? I raised my hand. I would like to get out. I was going to marry this Marine. He was one of those that grew up wanting to be in the military and was going to retire from the military. And I was ready. So there was a lot of resistance, like, oh, you shouldn't do that. Then there was a lot of conflict because I didn't sit for the E5 exam, because what would happen if I sat for the E5 exam, the results would have happened in September and I was going to get out in September. And I didn't want to make E5. And then they say, oh, you can't go. So I'm like, I'll just stay. And then back then, it was like a piece of paper. It was a chip. So you had to have this duplicate copy paper that had to go up all the way the chain with the signatures. I mean, thankfully, it got all that way up. So I got out. I literally walked off the ship. The next month, I got married. And then the next month, my husband deployed. So that's part of my transition story out of the military. And then the rest, I had to do reserves since I had signed up for that. But yeah, that's really short, quick version of my time in the military. And I enjoyed it. I mean, would I do it again now? No, but back then as learning challenges, I think that's with anything, but it was a good experience. And people say, well, why'd you join the Navy? Well, if I didn't join the Navy, I wouldn't have met my husband.
Well, that transition story, there's so much in there. It's one thing to make the decision to leave your job. It's another thing to make the decision to start a marriage. And it's yet another thing to become a military spouse. And now you're a military spouse with a spouse deployed. I mean, that is like 4 major life events all smushed into one.
That's literally what it was. And then trying to find a job too. Back then, this is when you faxed resumes. So you had to actually look in the newspaper for jobs. So anybody that's listening, that's the way we used to have to do it. There was no online. So, I was trying to look for work before I even got out. And then I was going to move back in with my parents while my husband deployed. So then when he got back, we would, settle. So it's like, okay, I'm getting out of the military. I'm an adult. I'm moving back in with my parents, finding, a job. And then my husband's leaving. And then thankfully I did find a job. I started the job the week after I got out. And the only reason I got the job is because I knew how to operate a floor buffer. So literally, I mean, that's my transferable skills right there. So they're looking for an office manager for this floor cleaning buffer machine manufacturer. And it was great because it wasn't far from where I was. So I was, and yeah, they hired me on, and I ended up becoming a sales manager when my husband and I moved to San Diego, selling product. All because I knew how to strip and wax a deck, because in the Navy, that's what you do. On Fridays, you'd strip it and you would wax it. So there's a lot of like funny stories of me because having to sell that product, because you have to go at night to sell the product. So I remember going to the Los Angeles Air Force Base Commissary. You're bringing the product, you're bringing the machine and loading it, and you pull it out. And then the workers, they're like, what did they say? Well, they asked where like Hefe is, like the boss. Because I'm like, no, it's me. They're thinking there's going to be some guy that was going to come to show them how to utilize this machine. And
And you're
so
like, get out of my way. I've done this on the deck.
so there's a lot of cool things that happened with that. But that was a really good experience for me having, start as office manager, do things, and then being able to sell. So that was my early time out of the military. Plus, my husband he was deployed and then he'd come back and then they, be out to do workups, and coming back. But I was very much, I don't want to use the word independent wife, but I had a different perspective than women who had just married someone and wasn't in the military. So that worked for me, but it didn't work for me in some ways because sometimes I felt there might have been some resentment or she knows too much or she doesn't know. So having to work through a lot of that with both active duty and with the spouses. So in that whole veteran identity, I didn't say I'm a veteran like I do today. I really didn't think I was a veteran anyways because my dad was a veteran. He was in Vietnam and that's a veteran. Of course, my way I feel about things have changed since then, but and it's like, how do you say, okay, my husband, I serve, but now I'm the spouse as well. So a lot of different things happening during that time.
What got you through all of that? Did you have like a really deep sense of self, or did you feel like that was a lot of years of growth happening?
I've always been an independent person, and my mom will tell you, Melissa cut her own umbilical cord because
Melissa cut her own umbilical cord.
That's what she'll say because that's the way I've been. I've just been, everybody wants to do it this way. I'm going to do it this way. It definitely helped me with that. But a lot of it was wanting to know more, to be able to connect with people. But I think a lot of it's just the way I'm built that way.
Was it hard for you to watch your husband wake up and put his uniform on and go do the service job when your uniform is, in the closet or in the drawer still?
Or it's donated. No, not really. I mean, especially when you see a Marine put on his uniform, and it's good there, and he spent, 21 years in the Marine Corps, so that was his thing there. So I really wasn't bothered by that. I just embraced being the spouse and, of course we had to relocate. So the PCS moves, doing all that stuff, as well. And then I was trying to get pregnant during some of this time and going to fertility and that was probably the more strenuous time. Not when he deployed. It was more of just trying to get pregnant and then having to PCS and then having to switch doctors and then he deploys. And so that was not a good time in our marriage.
Did you bring children into the family?
Yeah, and we agreed we would adopt her in LA County at the time. So that's when we brought our daughter home through foster care. So she was our foster baby. So she was 2.5 months when we brought Maya home, and she'll be 21 in June. So so we went through that process, which is a very strenuous process, but 1,000% worth it. She was meant for us, and we were meant for her. And then it was 2008, and my company, we were in Southern California. My husband was close to retirement, and they offered me an opportunity to come to Northern California to manage the Oracle account, which I'd work on site at Oracle. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm from Northern California. I don't want to go back to the Bay, but it was close enough. So if we remember, the economy it was tanking in 2008. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to take this opportunity. They paid for my relocation, put us in, an apartment, so we're able to find a house. And then 2009, I get laid off. So that was a time of, I can't believe it. Oh, I'll find a job easy because my background. But, here in the Sacramento area, there just weren't a lot of opportunities anywhere. And then that just put me on my other quest. So had I not gotten laid off from there, I wouldn't be talking to you. So that's really what started all of this, because then now I'm able to kind of shift into the entrepreneur mode. I got it in some ways like a survival mode of thinking, okay, what can I do? How can I find opportunity? But what really sucked for me, and this is relatable to those that are transitioning to the military, is I didn't have a community because I was working. I just had, I got this new job and I'm just like, okay, I thankfully, my mom was with me, and then my daughter she was 3, my husband was still in, Southern California because he was getting ready to retire. So it was just all these things that were happening. And then I went through this grief process, which I didn't understand at the time. Because, when we think of grief, we think of, oh, you have to lose somebody to grieve. But I was grieving my identity, grieving loss of a job, and thinking, okay, why this happened to me? And that's, like I said, that's, if I could pinpoint anything, that day is what's just started everything else.
I want to learn a little bit more about that. So, that particular day, you're saying when you were laid off.
That day, that was the day of, not saying to be set free, but and it was a very toxic environment I work is it was like I was stuck there anyways because I was stuck because one of the things is too, so when I relocated, they gave me a bonus, right? So you have that. It's like, okay, I can't quit because then I have to repay my bonus. And then I'm stuck in this new area, all these things. So it's really an a moment of, okay. But then I had to, like, grieve. I literally had to, like, I was, like, staying in bed all day. My husband didn't know because he wasn't here. He would come home on the weekends. Then 2010 comes, and it's like, okay, I gotta find, because this is end of 9. I'm like, okay, I gotta find a job. I mean, again, the economy's tanking. I mean, everything is. We're trying to refinance our house. I mean, thankfully, we were able to, because if we didn't, I mean, it was just so much happening. But what happened was I saw in the paper the employment development department was having a professional networking group for other professionals because there's so many people that are looking for work. I'm like, okay, I'll go to this. I didn't feel like qualified, but I did. One day, so this is 2010. This is 16 years ago. The facilitator did a presentation on how to use social media to find work. So again, social media is very new at this time. So they talked about Twitter, they talked about Facebook, and she talked about LinkedIn. And I'm thinking, you know what? I know how to use LinkedIn. I was an early adopter of LinkedIn because I was in recruiting and we use LinkedIn. So I said, hey, if you all in my class want to learn more, I will put a presentation workshop together at my house. So I started doing LinkedIn workshops at literally at my dining room table and inviting people in, job seekers, and we'd spend 2 hours. I'd have a whole little setup on how they can set up their profile, how they can use it. And again, I'm still unemployed, so I'm working, I'm just not getting paid. And then I get involved and I start a job seekers group. And we're meeting all the time. I got this group I'm running, still trying to find work. And then the LinkedIn thing. So all of 2010, I'm just doing these. It was for free, but I was honing my craft, right? As because when you're doing that, you're just trying to figure it out. And then finally, then I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'll start charging for this because economy started to pick up. Other recruiters went out to use it, salespeople, realtors, all these. So then I started charging it. So that developed into my own business doing LinkedIn. And then all of a sudden now I'm getting calls to come to conferences to teach or come to businesses to teach. So that was my thing. But then I ended up connecting with somebody at LinkedIn because he saw my ad on LinkedIn that I had and connected with him. And then a few months later, I'm working at LinkedIn not doing teaching LinkedIn, but doing their conferences and their global sales kickoffs. And one of the things, and I would love to share about that story, is they never asked me for a resume. They were just hiring. It was a contract position. It's like, we just need you for 3 months to help us. I'm like, okay, we'll do this paid contract. And I live in Sacramento, which is different from Silicon Valley. I still got paid what they got paid. Again, never ever asked me for a resume because if they did, I would have had that job on there, or that experience on it because I really didn't have it. So I was learning. It was going so fast. So 3 months turned into 4 years at LinkedIn. I had a lot of great experience. I got to travel the world with LinkedIn doing different conferences and planning their global sales kickoffs. So a lot of really good experience there. But one of the things I wanted to do is I wanted to write a book. And when I started the job seekers group, I put together a checklist of, okay, have a resume, have business cards, have LinkedIn. 90% of people had no idea what LinkedIn was. They called it all different names. So eventually in my book, I'll Get Back to Work that I published in 2014, there's an appendix and it's the checklist of what we need to do for work. And so I launched that in 2014, but I was still doing the LinkedIn stuff. I was finished with LinkedIn itself, and then I was still doing my workshops. And my goal was I launched the book. I'm going to go on book tours. I'm going to do all that stuff. And that was not my plan. That was God's plan. He's like, nope, that's not going to do it. You're going to start this women veterans meetup, and that's what you're going to be doing. So that's Yeah, the book was there, was out, I was doing sales, it's still available on Amazon. Yeah, and then I started Women Veterans Alliance. And it wasn't Women Veterans Alliance at the time, it was just a meetup group, and then we had to have a name and all that stuff.
11 years, no map, no plan, and a room full of women who thought they were the only veterans. What Melissa has been building is a direct response to a gap that no one else was moving on. We're going to name that gap when we come back. Stay with us.
The Medal of Honor is the highest award for valor in combat given a member of the Armed Forces of the United States. There have been over 3,400 recipients of the nation's highest award. This is one of them.
Private Dale Hansen killed 12 Japanese soldiers in a one-man attack on their positions. Details after this. If you have a VA claim denied by the Board of Veterans' Appeals, contact Legal Help for Veterans at 1-800-693-4800. They're experts in handling cases before the U.S. Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims. Their number again, 1-800-693-4800. Hansen unhesitatingly took the initiative during a critical stage of the action and, armed with a rocket launcher, crawled to an exposed position where he attacked and destroyed a strategically located hostile pillbox. With his weapon subsequently destroyed by enemy fire, he seized a rifle and continued his one-man assault. Reaching the crest of a ridge, he opened fire on 6 Japanese and killed 4 before his rifle jammed. Attacked by the 2 remaining Japanese, he beat them off with the butt of his rifle and then climbed back to cover. Returning with another weapon and supply of grenades, he fearlessly advanced and destroyed a strong mortar position and annihilated 8 more of the enemy.
The Medal of Honor series is a production of Veterans Radio.
Military veterans touch everyone's life. I'm guessing right now you're thinking of a veteran, a close friend, relative. Maybe it's you. Even the toughest of us sometimes need help, but don't know where to turn for support. You don't need special training to help a veteran in your life. We can all help someone going through a difficult time. Learn how you can be there for veterans. Visit veteranscrisisline.net. veteranscrisisline.net. A message from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs.
Welcome back to Veterans Radio. Before the break, you heard Melissa describe 11 years of showing up to the same discovery. Women veterans who feel invisible, disconnected, and alone inside communities that don't quite know what to do with us. What she's been solving for has a name, and when you can name the terrain, you can navigate it. Let's do that now.
Today's full interview with Melissa Washington is available on Hardcore and At Ease, powered by Others Over Self. That's Hardcore and At Ease. Find it wherever you listen to podcasts.
I like to be boots on the ground and I like to be at the table. And people say you can't do both. I'm like, I do both. And I got to do both. And it may hinder me from other things, but I really like to be involved. Then also, too, I have all these ideas and it's just like, okay, but I also have to execute them. And just let everybody know that Women Veterans Alliance, as far as our people, it's me and our part-time admin. We don't have a big staff. We're not $1 million business. We do a lot with very little, but a lot of that too is because of the systems that I put in place, which is very important because but it also costs money. The investment that I make helps that. And I know we want to talk about Engage and how that came up, and it's going to be our 5th one, May 30th.
Yeah, so Women Veterans Engage is the
Yeah.
national broadcast, and we've been a part of it since the very beginning. And what's been so interesting is that it really gives you the opportunity to connect with other women who have served in the military at that larger level. Like you said right at the beginning, it's easy to feel like you're the only one in your neighborhood. But really, when you can find the women and get them to crawl out from wherever they're hiding, there's a lot of us out here.
Absolutely. And it's, our active duty ladies, our reserve, our guard women. And, I was, had the unconference, but I was really thinking of like, how can we connect women that are like all over the place and some of them are hidden and, we're a lot of time, there are other women veteran orgs or groups that work great in silos, but there's still that disconnect piece. And, and before COVID even started, because this wasn't because of COVID, I thought of, okay, how can we didn't have, so we used to have chapters, and then that stopped. So it's like, okay, we don't have chapters, but I know people in other areas. And how can we reach these women who may not want to come online or maybe are interested online? But also, how can we elevate all these other women veteran groups or just groups in general? Because it's not just women veteran groups that are satellite locations, but how can we highlight and elevate all these great things that are going on? Because I do travel a lot. I do speak to a lot of people involved in a lot, and I see this disconnect. So what better word than engage, right? Because that's what we're going to do. And then let's see if there's interest from any other organizations that want to be a part of this national broadcast. Something that's very different. It's very unique what we do. And I know, Shelly, you were on board since day one. Thank you so much for that. And, in believing in me and believing in what we do. And we're on year 5, and it's continued to grow. The transformational, the impact that it's had on the women who attend. And it's something that it, it should be the norm, that like this is something, okay, people know, okay, this is what we're gonna do. And we make changes. I mean, if you look at our format from the first one, it's a little different than it was before. I mean, the infrastructure is pretty much the same, but how we delivered, because we kept learning each year, it's like, okay, well, let's not do this, but do this, and really refining that, and how can we make this so impactful for those that are online, but also for those that are in person.
And you
I know
have
last year we
over
had
20 locations this year, over 20 locations that are
I'm
broadcasting.
hoping. Last year we had 19. We're at 17 right now. I mean, we could add over 1,000 attendees last year. So if we can continue to multiply that, the impact that's having. But one of the key things that I wanted to make sure we had, and I had this since the first unconference, is an event app. It's like, we need to have an app, because if somebody's in Michigan or California or Texas, how are they going to talk to each other? So having this app then gives them the opportunity to just start introducing themselves, connecting. So many great conversations that would happen, because somebody say, oh yeah, I was in the Army, I was in Germany in this time, or I went to boot camp, or I stationed here, or I mean, there's all these different things that start happening, and in a safe environment where women can share that on the app, but then they can also share it, of course, when they're in person.
They can. Melissa, one thing that I've really noticed is that in the veteran space, we tend to see a need and then like clamor after it, which is not a bad thing. But with the rise, of the internet and AI, what we fail to recognize is that there are things that exist perhaps outside of our state that meet that need. And it's so beautiful to be able to go to a website like the Women Veterans Alliance and take a look at the listed allies and be able to see in one spot. I mean, there's women veteran organizations that help with basic things like employment, but there's also creative ones. Like there's a women veterans group that focuses on eating disorders. That's astonishing to me. And you are able to bring everyone together to say, what is your need? And let me just introduce you to a potential solution that's out there.
Yeah, and you're right. It's like, why reinvent something if something is there? And also, too, like in talking about Sea Waves, Leah Stiles, who, is the founder of the eating disorder. It's like, yeah, well, if I want to start an eating disorder, why do it if it's there? But there are things that we can collaborate on with each other. And that's a key word. Yes, there's competition, but if we can collaborate with all these other organizations that are doing things, just think how stronger we are. And I feel that's what's happening with Engage, because all these 1,000 attendees last year got to see 19 different organizations, corporations, nonprofits, individuals that are doing things around there. And then they want to learn more, and whether they can get involved or maybe they can learn from someone. So I feel what we're doing at Women Veterans Alliance, and me, I'm a connector. It's like, how can we connect all these different people together? Because that's the way my mind thinks. And I know my mind thinks differently than a lot of people. It's good and sometimes it's not good, but I'm thinking of these ways we can do that, and who I can introduce people to. I'm always, when I get on a call or something, I'm like, oh, do you know so and so? Let me introduce you. to them, because the more that we know together, again, the stronger and the more impact we have, and that goes, and if we look at, our women veterans, 2 million, right? And that's just veterans. That's not included, the active duty guard and reserve. How can we reach out to all of them? And we know women are at different stages of life, whether it's the menopause time or the going to school, or now I have kids, now I don't have kids, now I want to retire. And also as far as their, economic status, I mean, are they surviving? Are they thriving? We're all the same, but we're not the same, right? I'm leading into what you're going to be doing, because I feel that's so important of what you're going to be presenting on it Engage this year, and how much that's needed for our group, because we all have different ways we communicate in needs, and we can't make an assumption just because, yeah, we're women veterans, we could talk to each other, and just more of a maybe an informal setting, but really to talk and engage, there needs to be more, because we are different from women who have not worn a uniform. I mean, it's just, we are. I mean, it's just, it is. But how could we help our other women veterans connect better with each other
Yeah,
and
because we
understand that there
are,
are
and in the same
differences?
breath, we're not the same as each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And looking at what we did last year, the way we delivered Engage on the national broadcast was fantastic. All the 19 locations got to introduce each other to everybody. If you're in California, you got to learn more about what they were doing in New York, or we've got the Women's Memorial on this time, or Texas. And then you guys were on in Michigan. Then we had Chicago. And then we had an amazing speaker last year, Dr. Joyce Abbott. She was awesome. And then you reach out to me and want to set up some time to talk, because, you hadn't been a location before. And it's like, okay, you want to be involved, but differently. And, we've had that conversation, and it was just, it all fell in line.
What is the emotion or the takeaway that you want the women who attend Engage to feel at the close of that keynote?
Of your keynote? Yes. When women come in there, I want them to leave differently, in a positive way, feel differently, feel whether they feel motivated or have a better understanding of themselves, as well as understanding of others, right? So that's the takeaway, that they're going to get goodies and, swag and that kind of stuff. But what they're going to leave with, whether that's mind, body, or soul, that's something that feels good for them when they leave. Yeah, they're making these connections. And now they're even now going to be able to take it a step further with what you're going to be introducing to them.
And
So
we are having them go through the Wildflower Personality Assessment for women veterans.
what you've created is so innovative. It's doing something that has never been done in our space, and leveraging AI in such a positive way, where you can impact now literally hundreds of thousands of women, and using your time smartly of what you've created to have that day, you're going to have so much impact on all those women attending and learning. And I'm so excited about that. The only way they're going to do it is if they register for womenveteransengage.com. They can come to one of our 17 in-person locations, or if they're not, they can join us virtually. So even if you join us virtually, whether it's from your couch or your front seat of your car, your desk, your bed, you're going to be able to partake in this assessment, and to be able to not only find out what your main flower is, because we have these other different parts of us that are other flowers, but learn that more about yourself, and then how you can communicate with others. So you definitely want to register to be part of Engage. And Engage is open to everyone, but our primary focus is always going to be our women veterans active duty guard and reserve, but others can participate. If you miss it, I'm telling you, you're going to miss out on something you just haven't seen before.
How did you feel when you got your assessment results?
I don't know. And honestly, I was like, I think I want to do it again, because yes, I am that. That's the way people see me. But I feel, though, that did I answer the questions the way that I truly feel, or the way I feel people see me? So I don't know. I'm really thinking, do I take it again
Yes.
and answer it truly the way that I feel? Not that I was lying. Because again, the way people see me, and I am the same person.
I agree with you. And that's a question that we should have at the front of our minds. And so I do want to encourage you actually to retake the assessment. I'll get you a new link for it. One of the biggest problems is that is true for every personality assessment, whether you're doing DISC or the 16 different Enneagrams or whatever. Are you answering because you think this is how people see you, or are you answering from the heart, right?
Yes. So I think mine was a mixture of that. Because yes, I do need people, but I also like to have just be me as an individual. And so maybe when I did answer some of the questions, I didn't want to seem like I was selfish. I don't know. Yeah. I think I need to take it again I think that's to do it again.
Absolutely. If there was a woman who came out with your same results, what would be some advice that you would have for her?
Well, I think you mentioned the people pleasing part, and a lot of that goes into also wanting to say yes to everything because you don't want to let somebody down. And over my last so many years is understanding that it's okay to have boundaries and say no. And also, we can't please everyone. And I learned that early on, but even more so with the setting up meetups. I'm not going to please everyone. It's not going to be perfect for every single person, the date and the time. So you have to let that part go and really remember that it's you and putting your oxygen mask on first before you try to please others. And that even goes into making sure, again, because we're always trying to fill everybody else's cup besides ours. And that goes in same thing, right? Oh, I want to do all this for everybody, but I also have to remember I need to take care of me. And that's not selfish.
Here's what Melissa Washington has been doing for 11 years without a framework to hand it to. She walked into a room of women veterans who felt invisible, and she decided the invisibility itself was the problem worth solving, not the symptoms, the source. She built a conference, a foundation, a giving arm, a broadcast, and a network of 20 locations because she could see that connection was the first thing being lost after service, and she wasn't going to wait for someone else to come and close the gap. What she has been navigating and what the veterans who come to her events are navigating, it has a name. It's wilderness. It's not failure and it's not weakness. It's not a sign that our transition out of military service went wrong. Wilderness is a specific kind of terrain. It has no map. There's nothing in your training that prepared you for it exactly. Every choice in front of you comes with a cost. The confirmation of who you are stops coming back the way that it used to. And something inside of you feels off in a way that you can't put a name to. When it comes to the wilderness, there's 5 criteria, and if 3 of them are true at the same time, then you know that you are in the wilderness. Every veteran hits this terrain at some point. The uniform comes off, and the structure that told you where to be, what to do, and who you were inside, well, it's gone. You can be in a room full of people and still feel like the only one. Melissa has been collecting that data for 11 years on the women veteran side of this. What you heard today is the evidence that the gap is real and that one person with a mission can spend 11 years plus filling it. If you hear yourself in any part of what Melissa described today, there's more coming. The Women Veterans Engage Conference is May 30th. Melissa will be there. I will be there as the keynote speaker. And we are bringing something to that room that has never been done in this space. You'll want to know more about it. You matter in this conversation, not as a statistic, not as a category, as someone who served, who's still navigating terrain that most people around you cannot see. That is why this work exists, and that is why I am honored to bring it here. I'm Shelly Rood. Thank you for choosing to spend this time with me today on Veterans Radio. You are dismissed.
from the mountains to the ocean, white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans, white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans, white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans, white with foam.